Hello once again my friends, it's Jason here at Screen Photographic. Hope you're doing well. Now of course we are in the midst of the coronavirus right now, and it's really unfortunate, isn't it, sweeping all over the world, and people having to self-isolate and find things to do to keep themselves occupied until they can return back to work. And from a creative point of view, as a photographer, it does mean that you're very limited to what you can do. Yes, there's photos around the house that you can take, photos of pets, family members, perhaps you can create stock photos at home, but you need to find other things, whether that brings you in an income, or whether that's purely for teaching purposes, or purely to enhance and develop your skills. And that's what I thought I'd show you today. I thought I'd show you a way you can use Gimp, which is software we've looked at before, to create a mosaic pattern from an image of your choosing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into Gimp, and I'm going to talk you through the steps. Now, as always, grab an image. It can be one that you found from a free stock website, and of course please do credit the website and the creative of the image. If you do that, Pexels is a very good one to look at, and there's also Pixarma as well. Or you can use one of your own images, and I would encourage you to do that because it's quite a rewarding little tutorial. Okay, so this is Gimp. You've probably seen this before in some of my other videos, and this is basically free Photoshop, and it works on Windows, Mac and Linux, which I run at home. Now you'll probably note some of the tools here, and these may look familiar, and some of the filters, etc., which may be very familiar to you. They're greyed out because I'm not working on an image. And I've also added some additional things like Gimp and the Go exercise, and one or two other scripts as well. The good news is you can do this without any additional content or any additional software being added to Gimp. This tutorial is something you can do right out of the box. So without further ado, let's grab our image. So let's go to File, and I'm going to open a recent image that I've been working on. Is this one here of Charlotte that I took in Ipswich last year. Really fantastic street shoot, and Charlotte's a fantastic model, and I'm quite fond of this photo, definitely in the way it's composed and the way it's put together. But enough talk about that. So first things first, what you want to do is come up to the tools panel here, and you want to take the measure tool, and you just want to measure a vertical line. Make sure vertical is selected in the options window, and you want to hit straighten. No, if it doesn't work, you need to draw a slightly longer line on the vertical axis, and you can adjust the start and end point. Okay, the image is already straight. Fantastic. So next, let's go over to the crop tool, which is this one. There's a knife here. Now when you load this up, these won't already be set. I've already done a couple of practices of this to make sure I get it right for the tutorial. What you might find that your crop tool is set to size, and it says current layer only. So let's uncheck that, and let's go to fixed aspect ratio, and so that's a 1:1. And what I want you to do now is just draw a square. You can adjust, until you're happy with it. I can sort of crop it a bit tighter into Charlotte's head there. That works well for me. Hit enter, and then press Ctrl, Shift and J on your keyboard to take the image resize to the full screen. Okay, so we've got a decent sized crop and a decent sized image to work with now, and we've got all the details in the face that we want to bring in. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a mosaic effect to this image, which looks pretty cool. And we're going to do this using grid tools, and we're going to do this using a little bit of repetition, and this is probably the easiest edit I've done. If you know nothing about post-processing, photo manipulation, if you know nothing about Gimp or even Photoshop, it doesn't matter. You can pick this up and follow along quite quickly. So what I want you to do first of all is come down here to this white box, and this creates a new layer. And if you click on it, you're going to need to perhaps make some changes to here, because I've been working on this layer previously, and Gimp remembers previous settings when you've used the software. That's no big deal. If there's anything in mode, make sure that gets changed to normal. and in the layer name you can call it anything you like. Just for clarity, we're going to call this grid. And what we're going to do, we're going to come up to the filters tab now, and this has lots of enhancements and modifications that you can do to produce some cool features on your image, or perhaps make further enhancements to it if you wanted to perhaps sharpen a bit more, add some Gaussian blur, whatever it is you want to do in terms of, sort of general photo image manipulation. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to come down to render, and we want to draw a grid to create our mosaic across the image. Before you do, I would recommend that you change the foreground and background colour. You don't have to do this, you can work off a black grid. I'm going to work off a white one today, just to see how it looks. So filters, render, pattern, and grid. Now you'll see it brings up, if I just move this out of the way, lots and lots of squares, which is something that we don't want to be working on right now. We want just a few squares to create our mosaic. You could use this method. It would take you a hell of a long time to create the image that you wanted, and you'd need to have lots of attention to detail to make sure that the colours that we're going to add later on were accurate. So let's try, and you can adjust these values at any time. So let's try, say, a width of 250. And let's try a line width of, say, 6. Now what you want these lines to do is sit flush to the edges of the image, so it's only really the bottom one that we're going to have to shift, and you can do that by adjusting the width. Okay, I'm quite happy with that, so we select OK. Now the next step is to come up to our tool panels and use the fuzzy select tool. Now because we've created a grid, what this fuzzy select tool will do is just select the areas inside of the squares that we want to work on. If you were to click on the white lines, you see if you click inside the square here, if you were to click on the white line by accident, it would select the whole image. And that's not what we want for the purpose of this tutorial. We don't want the entire grid selected, so let's press Ctrl and Z, and it goes to our original selection. And you can select these in a random pattern. There's nothing sort of uniformly that you have to do for this. I'd try and get in the corners if you can, but you really don't have to. Select these at random. Should we select any more? Should we? Yeah, let's select the bottom one. Okay. Let's take our white and let's drag this in to one of these squares. Okay, so straight away we've got our mosaic pattern set. And you could do this with black, you could do this with any foreground colour. I think white looks pretty good for this particular image. You know, you could change the foreground colour if you wanted by doing it to black, which also looks pretty cool. It's entirely up to you. The sky's the limit of this particular tutorial. Bear on the outside of the grid is white, so let's keep it uniformly and let's just drag the white colour back in. Okay, now you're going to create a new layer. There's a couple of things you could do, which is to pick a foreground colour if you were working perhaps with a vibrant colour before you've done the crop which you wanted to maintain, but we've not done that at this stage, so we're just going to work off the colours from the foreground and sort of foreground colour selection from here. Before you do that, if you press Ctrl, Shift and A, it clears your mosaic selection. Let's create another new layer. And let's think of a nice colour, so let's call this one, should we go for a purple, shall we? And what you'll see, this colour tab here will set a little purple check mark up in the layers panel here, so at a glance you can see what colour you're working with. If you haven't got a colour, perhaps go for the nearest one. There is a way to change these, I believe, which we'll have to look at another video. Now from mode, I want you to change this one to overlay. Basically the science behind that is that it then overlays a colour onto the image, which is worked out off a science. Now if you see it in a grid, it would form as part of an S-curve. and there's a logic behind how it works out the colour and how it overlays it onto the image, which is quite difficult reading. But if you use Photoshop or indeed Gimp before, there's some useful videos and sort of help online if you're interested in the science behind the colour and the science behind the software. Anyway, let's hit OK. Now what we need to do is go back to our grid layer with our fuzzy tool still selected. And let's select some random squares again. And for a colour, we want to select a purple colour. So you can do it by the colour picker. If you know the hexadecimal number, you can type it in, and you can change from LCH to HSV colour, and the colour spectrum on there. There's also colour pickers, CMix and other ways that you can pick colours, but we're going to use this method. And going back to our original grid, we're going to select purple again, and we're going to drag these in. I'm going to reduce the opacity down to about 60. That's pretty good to me. I'm just going to do a little bit more repetition now. So let's call this one orange. That is set to overlay. Let's clear our selection again. Select some more random squares. Try not to select the squares that you've already added colour into, because it will just recolour them, although that's not an issue if you do. Let's go up to our orange colour. We'll select a nice bright orange. Yeah, that works for me. If your selection is open, it is. Drag the colours in. I'll reduce the opacity again. We're going to reduce this one even more to about... Actually, let's stick with that. Let's stick with 60. That looks pretty good to me. Now you can leave some squares, of course, just as they are, which is what we're going to plan to do with this image. We'll just do maybe one, maybe two more layers. Let's go down to our grid layer. Shift Control and A to undo the selection. Let's create a new layer, and let's pick a green, shall we? Now you don't have to use these colour tabs, they're just for sort of ease of use if you're working with different layers and different colours. And you probably get what we're going to do now. We're going to come down to our grid layer again, pick the fuzzy select tool, and we're just going to pick some random squares and colour them in green now. Oop. There we go, not a disaster. So what green should we go for? Should we go for a nice dark bottle green? I think we probably should. Okay, come up to our green layer. Again, let's reduce the opacity to this one to about 70, and let's just do one more colour for some of these squares. Shift Control A to undo the selection. This is already looking pretty cool if you ask me. We're going to do one more layer, and we're going to pick a colour. Let's go for blue. Once again down to our grid layer, once again the fuzzy select, and keep some squares the same colour, but we'll select some different ones now. So let's pick our blue. On the go for a lighter blue. There we go, that looks nice. Let's drag this into our image. That's a little bit. That'd be a little bit purple if you down the colour down the skin, doesn't it? I'm going to leave this at about 80. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So what you can do, you can merge this layer down now, and it will get rid of all the colours. So you want to try to avoid doing that. Hit Control Z to undo that merge and keep all the colours on there. So just make sure you unselect your squares on the grid layer. And that looks pretty smart to me, doesn't it? Now there's a number of options you could do. You could export it, you could do further additions to it. I reckon, although I haven't actually tried, you could create your own stained glass window effect with these as well. But I quite like that. That looks something quite arty. That looks like something you might have in a magazine. Hopefully you followed along at home. As I say, now we've all got a little bit more time with people not working through coronavirus and things like that. I'm going to show how to do more of these, from sort of flat designs to as I've started on graphic design. So once I'm learning more techniques, I'll share them with you, to image manipulation like this, to photo editing, and I'll try and get more videos of me rambling nonsense about photography as I normally do. But hopefully you found this useful, hopefully you found this fun. As again, you've been watching Screen Photographic. My name's Jason, and as soon as I have the chance to get back out there with the camera, once things settle down a little bit, I will do that for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video today on how to create a mosaic type effect picture from a photograph using Gimp. Very, very transferable as well to Photoshop. No special software needed. You can literally download the software from the Gimp website and do this straight out of the box. Impress your friends with it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next video at some point. So you take care of yourselves now. Bye.